Alright guys, we just released the rogue video with twisting blades. I've gone ahead and made it a rapid fire one too, just because rapid fire I think is going to be better. Especially since on the twisting blades one, I kind of mix it with how poison imbuement is working now. But the thing is like condemnation and the combo points don't really work with shadow imbuement. So to be honest, it might be better to run a different dual wield weapon and then run um, a different specialization. But I don't know. This one's the one we got for rapid fire, so we're going to go through it. We're going to start with the skill tree, fundamental puncture, just to help make enemies vulnerable. And then we have rapid fire down to advanced rapid fire, even though we're not really worried too much about critical strike damage. The other option is to gain 15 energy, but we should be able to maintain our energy um, with innervation. So yeah, but if it ends up being an issue, all we got to do is switch from advanced rapid fire over to improved rapid fire because this critical strike damage doesn't matter all too much. We get some points into. Why is it doing that? One second, let me refresh this. Okay. We took our points out of siphoning strikes since we're not going to be close to enemies a whole lot. But we still have sturdy. Come through here. We can actually remove points from trick attacks, but I don't have anywhere else really to put them, so we'll just keep it. But just note that when you're first, you don't really need this because we don't really care about critical strike damage all that much. But we do want unstable elixirs, weapon mastery, and balistra. Can never pronounce this. Plus we want dash for the methodical dash. Then we want concealment up to subverting concealment just so it can grant vulnerable. This is to give us stealth for the Night Stalker Paragon node. Or the glyph, sorry. And then mending obscurity, this is something that I also didn't have on the other build. When entering stealth, you'll gain 21% max life. It'll actually be more because we'll have Shroud of False Death on, and this website doesn't show the +1 from that. Then, of course, we have Dark Shroud, countering Dark Shroud. Exploit Malice. 5 points in the Shadow Imbuement, Mixed Shadow Imbuement, Frigid Finesse. We're still doing Shadow Clone on this build. And then Enervation, that's how we're going to keep our energy up. Second Wind to give us some barrier for some damage reduction. And then Alchemical Admixture, of course, because we're doing an imbuement build. Alright. Now we're going to go over to the combo point. We're not using combo points, we're using preparation. This will really help keep our cooldowns down. We are still running Harlequin Crest just to get that damage reduction, cooldown reduction, and rank stall skills isn't bad because it does grant us another 4 points into Shadow Imbuement to do a little bit more shadow damage. If you want to do more damage, you could run Air of Perdition. There's no sense in running Cowl since we're not really worried about trick attacks, right? But both of those will grant more damage, I think, than Shaco will, but I still want this cooldown reduction because since we're down a ring, we don't have as many Shadow Imbuement casts. So we're going to want to keep our cooldowns as low as possible. Shroud of False Death, of course. Gloves ranks the rapid fire attack speed. I honestly think that since we're not running Condemnation, we do need to run, and I'm actually going to put this edit in on the fly. We do need a lucky hit chance to make vulnerable because we do have our fundamental puncture, but that's not, we don't want to use that all the time, you know? And since we aren't running combo points, you could technically get rid of puncture, but I want to keep it for the vulnerable part because there's nothing else to really run anyway. You could run Shadow Step if you want to instead, but I'm going to keep puncture. Umbrus on the pants, you want Dex max life. Bonus to second wind, and then Twisting Blades returns faster is on there. That's from the Twisting Blades part. This can honestly be anything that you're missing, so like armor or lucky hit chance to freeze, which we already have that on the gloves. It could really just be anything, some total armor if your armor is not reaching where you want. Concealment cooldown reduction would actually be good. So we're going to change it to that. What did I see about Dark Shrouds? Okay, maximum life while Dark Shroud's active. No, we'll do, what was it? I'm so bad at this concealment cooldown reduction. There we go. And then this stat, depending on what you're missing, is what we're going to change this to. So, like, if you need some resistance to an element, you put it there. If you need more armor, you'll put it there. If you need armor, too, that where I just put that concealment cooldown, we'll just change that to total armor or something like that. Pentium Greaves, where that is at, is actually the new unique. It is not as good as having some boots on because I think Concussive Strikes is better for the extra damage it adds. But it's a PTR, so I want to use the new thing, right? So the only thing that really matters on this is Ranks of Shadow Imbuement, so it just gives us a little bit more damage. And then your mobility skills, which the only one is dash. That's another reason that you could add, Shadow Step. But mobility skills are always shadow imbued with 40 to 80% increased potency. Lucky hit, damaging an elite or a boss with a mobility skill has up to a 40 to 80% chance to instantly trigger a free shadow imbuement explosion. So pretty much you'll stab them, lucky hit chance, and they go boom. But anyway, and then the aspect of encircling blade is actually the new aspect of bitter infection, which will give us up to 50%. Our enemies infected by shadow imbuement take 50% of its damage every second. Shadow Imbuement deals 50% increased damage. Since we have that on the two-hand, it's going to be 100% if you have a max roll. So that is definitely the best on the two-hander slot. As you can see, I've moved elements from the amulet to the gloves because I think that corruption's just better because it's an effect that you have all the time. As long as they're vulnerable, the potency is going to be increased by 45%. Do that 1.5 times. I don't know if they've already added that, but I don't think they do. We'll check. I know I'm doing a lot of stuff on the fly, and I also can't spell. No, so just multiply that by 100, or multiply it by 50%. Yeah, and then Ring of Starless Skies still just because it gives us extra damage for spending resource. It also gives attack speed and like a hit chance, which is nice. And then Scoundrel's Kiss. This is why I do think we definitely need to worry about cooldown reductions. Because our Shadow Imbuement, we're not going to have a bunch of casts with it. I think the max you can get is what, like +6, so like 8. So we just need a lot of cooldown reduction. But between using Preparation and Harlequin Crest, I'm hoping we can keep that down. Over to this. Dagger is preferred, but I mean you can use whatever, to be honest. It's not a huge deal. Basic skills are always cold imbued. So this is how we're doing cold damage. For alchemical admixture. I don't know why that word is so hard for me to say. And then when they're chilled from hitting them with this, and also we have a chance to freeze on the gloves, then we'll do an extra 20% damage to them. So it just kind of doubles out. This is also why we want to keep puncture. If you don't use puncture, you can change cold clip to another damage, but we'll have to go down here, remove lock, and put something that adds another damage. Or no, sorry, you could just change the lucky hit to a different elemental type. But I don't know. I prefer to use cold clip because we're already gonna have to rely on that with this one, where it has like a chance to deal fire damage, which is how we're gonna get the third and last one for our alchemical admixture. But again, if you don't want to use cold clip, I suppose you could change that. Right now we have like a chance to deal shadow damage because I didn't have anything else to put there, and we are a shadow build, so we have a bunch of shadow damage. So it's just a little bit of a trigger. And obviously damage per Dark Shroud. And on all three weapons, max life dex and vulnerable damage is your best bet. We don't need critical strike damage. I don't really know if shadow damage is DOT. I don't think it is. When they're infected with shadow damage, it looks like it's a DOT effect, but really what's hurting them is the ticking from exploding, right? So ticking, it's not actually ticking, so just it exploding. God, I'm really bad at English. All right. I think that's it. So what I was talking about before is the new druid ruin that causes like lightning strikes and stuff. You could use that to get lightning damage on enemies. If you didn't want to use cold clip and you didn't want to put lucky hit for something else, but I think lucky hit would be best if you don't want to use cold clip, but I think cold clip just makes it way simpler. I'm gonna stop rambling now. Over to the mercenary. We have the same thing. You don't really need attack speed so much, but we're going to go with it for bloodthirst here. Opportunity would just be when you cast rapid fire. And right here, going down to inspiration, which is pretty much what I put on everything because that's 40% increased damage as long as the enemies have been hit and you've been granted the ability. And lastly, Paragon, which is the same as the Twisting Blades one. If you do decide to use condemnation and combo points, You want to change one of these boards, I think, to Cunning Stratagem, just so you can get extra arrows and actually have an effect from Condemnation, but you really have no reason to run it, in my personal opinion. We'll go through the board real quick, though. We have Efficacy in the starter board. Also, I have everything set to if you have 300 points. I expect most people can understand where they need to remove stuff from. They may not want to or know how to make a big board, but like taking a couple points out of like flat damage, taking a couple points out of max life, taking a couple points out of this damage reduction from vulnerable. This is if you're not 300. So if you're like 250, definitely get rid of all of this. If you're 250, where it goes dodge chains, impairment reduction, you'll get rid of that. You can get rid of this attack speed if you want to. But anyway, the way that it made it look is that we'll be able to, like it said something about copying our characters over to the PTR. So I'm gonna assume we can play with our Paragon 300 characters. So that's why I have 300 points in here. But anyway, Efficacy in the starter board. Then we have Canny and Cheap Shot. Canny is getting a buff. I'm not going to edit this video as much as the last one because it means I have to render the whole thing, and we've been pretty good at doing this all in one take, even though I've had to and change a few things. We're just going to leave it because it is 3:30 in the morning, and I don't feel like editing it, but I want to go ahead and put it up. So, but this has been changed to 15%, so that's why we're going to run Canny, because it is getting a 5% boost. That's multiplicative damage. The shadow damage is non-physical damage, so that is going to help. Then over here we have Exploit Weakness with Night Stalker, adding a bunch of shadow damage. This will help with the fact that we just want to do shadow damage, and also the alchemical immature scales with your bonus damage with shadow, poison, etc. Then we come down here, Eldritch Bounty, which this is also getting a buff. It's going to be the same thing, except for you're getting 30% increased damage now, which is nice. We have Control in here, mostly for the additional bonus. And then lastly, no witnesses. We have Versatility in there. And yeah, we're kind of just grabbing everything. I don't know if you guys have noticed, we've grabbed most of the blue stuff across the board. So like we got literally pretty much everything except for this healing received and like this 100 life per 5 seconds node. Or 50%, so 100 total. Besides that, we have all of them. Not counting like this, so obviously we don't need that. But anyway, thank you guys for watching. This is going to be the build I probably tried before Twisting Blades. I don't know, the way that they have the PTR, if they make it easier than last time, that would be nice, so that we could, because like they had the vendor in the Season 6 PTR, and it was ass trying to get specific gear. That's why a lot of these were left empty. That has changed now because of the rings are not being there. And the pants. So in the last build, one of the rings didn't have everything on it because I was like, well, if you get attack speed, you're fine because it's a PTR, right? We're not going to focus too much on that. But anyway, oh, also the reason that we run concealment. I figure most people know, and I said it earlier, but Night Stalker's ability is entering stealth reduces the active cooldown of Shadow Imbuement by 4 seconds. So that's why we want to do that. Anyway, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, all generic YouTube stuff. I will catch you guys in the next one. We're not going to do another rogue build next, but I'd done a lot of work for the last one, so I figured I'd make a rapid fire version. This is essentially taking the Twisting Blades version. I literally made a copy of it and then just edited the stuff to be rapid fire. That's why I missed a few things during the recording and we fixed it. But yeah, thank you for watching.